Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space, where I take stories from across the internet and read them for your entertainment. This particular story is called Humans Have War Gods on Their Side, written by Random 3X. Prince Garruk of the Ulutai Empire was on his way to a neutral piece of rock to meet ambassadors from a new race his people had detected recently. It was an annoying duty he, as one of the 100 princes of the Empire, had to perform. The Ulutai Empire preferred methods of expansion was often conquest, but even they had to keep up appearances as civilized people. Throughout their history, they had never been one to start a fight. There was always a little insult here, or maybe a surprise attack on an inconsequential ship there. Nothing the shadows couldn't manage to frame the barbarians. Regardless, they would always have a casus belli for when they launched their invasions. So learning about the latest vassal state that he would have to play his part for was simply doing his duty. Your Highness, the humans have sent a collection of their files to help us understand them, one of his servants said, offering him a data slate. It was a common tactic amongst the universe's races to share displays of their mightiest warriors, to puff their chests up and roar at the mighty empire. The prince, though, knew there was no such race that had yet to not bow before the empire's might. With a flick of a talon, he opened the files provided. The humans seemed to be imbecilic, standing documents of science and mathematics. Did they believe the empire was uneducated? This right here would be a casus belli in of itself. Brukar, is this all they sent? The prince asked his servant. No, your highness. They were marked as important files. They also sent many files that seemed to have vid attachments. Ah, so they sent us videos of their warriors in combat. Send them to my device so I might gaze upon their weakness. Oh, how the prince would come to regret his words. The files were segmented into separate videos, each roughly 90 sectors long, but each showed feats of combat unmatched by anything even the Empire could manage. He could feel a cold sweat begin to fall as his ship dropped out of FTL and entered the solar system of the humans. So they have a thunder god with a great hammer, a mighty engineer in a suit of armor of great power, a man of true honor who can fight with a shield. The prince listed off, just mentioning the mightiest warriors displayed in the file marked Avengers series. I personally fear the robotic assassins, the servants declared, showing a still image of a large muscular human with a single mechanical eye exposed. Does the Empire have the strength to face such monsters? No, your highness. I dare say that these videos, we may have become subservient in this relationship. Yes, that may be best, the prince said with a nod before pausing. What was your favorite warrior display? The one named Rambo. He showed great skill in combat while still keeping it entertaining. I am personally amazed that the humans even provided videos regarding both sides of the conflict. It is odd to know the details that even the warriors on display did not always know. Before the prince and his servant could get into further debate, they landed on the fourth planet in the solar system, where the humans had agreed to meet with them. It was a small colony recently established. Stepping out of the airlock, the prince was greeted by a few people in what he now knew were named suits. He knew the suited ones were the rulers of the world. This one greets the honored representatives, the prince said, gifting the human diplomats a bow that he would not give anyone other than his father, the emperor. Seeing their reaction, the prince was certain that this was the right call. The humans did not even react to such a high honor. Surely, they knew with their power, such deference was a given. It is a pleasure to meet you, your highness. Would that be okay? Apologies, monarchies are a bit limited on our planet, so, I do not wish to cause offense. The prince understood the humans' meaning. The human race had all but eliminated royals, and if the prince stepped out of line, they would unleash someone like the Superman on them. Your Highness is acceptable way to greet this one, the prince replied. Ah, good. We have a conference room available so that we can speak at leisure, the human diplomat said as he led the way. May I ask something? The prince nodded. How did you like our little collection of movies? The human asked, turning to look over his shoulder. The prince audibly gulped. This was a true test now. Would he show his willingness to bend the knee and become a vassal of humanity? Or would he doom his race to extermination by terrible war gods like the Daleks? I would like to say your displays left me without any doubt that a friendship between our races is in both our interests. Ah, good. Maybe I can arrange for you to meet some of the people in them. I'm sure that they would be more than happy to visit your home planet. Please, no, that won't be necessary. The prince cried out in panic. Sorry, but too forward of me. We can organize that one day if we need to, the human replied with a threatening gesture of baring its fangs at the prince. Here we go. Feel free to enter and settle in. I'll make sure that we have everything we need for a smooth meeting. The prince could see this was the final warning. Only the most important person would enter the room last in the Empire. To force the prince into the room first meant that they had accepted his unspoken vassalage. With a friendly nod, the prince entered and settled down into a chair. Harold was beside himself with joy. He had at first been panicking after he had been told an alien race wished to meet, and he was one chosen to greet them. But he had studied up on all the etiquette that he could manage to, even watching Downtown Abbey a bunch of times to get at least a few of the customs down. What surprised him, though, was how calm and polite the prince was. The few other races humanity had met had made a point about the Yoleti Empire being extraordinarily arrogant and unpleasant to deal with, even warning they were a vicious race. But he could see that it was all likely just a misunderstanding. Show someone the right respect, and they will respect you right back. Entering a nearby kitchenette where the refreshments were being prepared, Harold looked over the last few parts. Premium tea, sweets, savories, got everything anyone could want. Oh, and Tom, Harold said, turning to his very helpful aide. Yes, sir. Your movie collection was enjoyed by the visitors. Good suggestion. Oh, great, Tom said with a grin. I considered adding horror movies, but thought that they might not like them, so I kept it to all fun action movies and superhero stuff. Well, we'll see if the whole Empire will love them. I'm sure that we can negotiate broadcasting rights. Nothing like a cultural exchange to oil up the gears of diplomacy, Harold declared as he took the trolley with all the snacks and drinks back towards the conference room. End of story. Story number 2, A Leader's Duty, written by Teller of Tall Tales. Jared flinched a bit as the faux wood doors to his office were blown open. He frowned slightly as he fished a piece of wood out of his scotch. The old Terran army commander rolled his eyes as a full squad of Geknosian spec ops surrounded his desk, blasters drawn down to the lone human. The semicircle of armored and masked lizards parted at the middle as the Geknosian officer, with more medals than a pre-FTL North Korean general, walked in. With an almost giddy expression, the Geknosian officer sat across from Jared, bringing out the file folder as Jared stared daggers at the black-scaled Geknosian. The officer happily set a few slave contracts down on the desk between them, launching into his spiel. I am glad that you decided to join the Geknosian Republic, human. You even sent away all of your forces so that our expeditionary fleet could land undisturbed. How thoughtful. Quickly signing the owner lines of the slave contract, the Geknosian officer slid them around so the commander Jared could sign the slave line. Jared nodded and picked up the oddly thick pen, signing something on the slave line before asking, Out of curiosity, how large is the fleet you landed? I've heard re-entry burn all day. The Geknosian officer grinned happily as he swept the slave papers up. 1 billion ground combat personnel, 500 million armored land and water vehicles, and 1 million ships, and all the fuel and ammunition to keep them going for 10 years. The Geknosian seemed overly proud at what he just divulged. Jared nodded slightly, lifting the pen closer to his mouth before saying, VSFFAFO, enemies in position and unsuspecting, fire at will. There was a slight pause before the voice responded. This is Captain Leandra of the volunteer fighting ship the FAFO, firing for effect. The Geknosians laughed raucously, but felt he remembered the ship's name from somewhere. Oh, human, you think the one puny ship could take out an entire planet? We had them on scans the entire time. Jared just sighed and slipped his liquor. Well, you all fucked around. Now, it's time to find out. The Geknosian looked at the human commander in utter disbelief. But you'll die with us. Jared laughed, downing his glass and sighing. That's the leader's job. Make sure your men get out alive and that the enemy doesn't. If I gotta be put to rest, there's no better place than atop 1 billion enemy corpses. I hope hell's nice and warm for you. The earth rumbled as a wave of burning air could be seen rushing towards them from the window behind Jared. The human commander closed his eyes with a smile. Captain Leandra held a salute, watching as the asteroid the size of Earth's moon crashed into the planet. A wave of burning atmosphere spread across the surface before the planet cracked and exploded. Chunks of the rock the size of continents shot out into space. The VFS Fafo hovered silently in the void of space a few light years away, watching the death of the planet through long-range observation equipment. Captain Leandra sighed and brushed her long red hair out of her face after dropping the salute. The upgraded ARS had made short work of the planet, all thanks to the Commander Jared's generous donation. She'd gone to officer school with Jared. The guy was always seemed to be one of the ones that never would make it. A physically weak man he was, but he wasn't stupid. He knew the geckos would need some bait to land their forces. She just never expected him to volunteer his own life. Goodbye, and Godspeed, old man. End of story. I would quickly like to thank our Tier 5 patrons, Dragzoon WRE, Quantum Wednesday, Ambrose Cattell, Lord Ashrakal, Bushmaster 177, Casper Arnholtz, Cam Maxwell, and Arcadian. Thank you very much.